Okay.
Okay, so we should be live on Facebook and we should be everywhere. So today is April 21st, 2022. It is 7:30. This is I don't want to call it a special council meeting, but a council meeting for us to read some legislation. And I am not looking at the agenda. So let's just start with roll call. Councilperson Koss.
Present.
Councilperson McNamara.
Present.
Councilperson Camera.
Present.
Councilperson Bruegger.
Present.
Councilperson Shrestha.
Present.
1, 2. And Council President Wolf is excused for tonight. And that would be everybody. Did I get everybody? 1, 2. Why do I feel like I'm missing something? 3, 4, 5. No, that's everybody. Okay. We are obviously not doing the Pledge of Allegiance since we are Zoom. Do we have council meeting minutes on there?
Not this one.
Good. Okay. Because I'm not looking at it. And then we will switch over to Mark Bruegger for legislation.
I'm looking at the agenda and it does say minutes, March, April 14th.
Does it?
Well, I'm confused because it says March, April 14th council meeting minutes.
April.
Yeah, so they are ready. I'm trying to find it.
Oh, are they? I didn't see it. I mean,
if they're on the agenda, they might not be in the packet.
Yeah, you can always move them to next meeting. So
okay, review them. Yeah, let's do that. We'll review them and we'll make sure the agenda is ready to go for the 28th.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, everybody has plenty of time.
There we go. That makes sense. Okay. So, reading our legislation, ordinance number 07-2022. An ordinance providing for the insurance and sale of not to exceed $8 million of special obligation development revenue bonds, series 2022 of the Village of Minerva Park, Ohio, under chapter 5709 of the Ohio Revised Code for the purpose of paying the cost of certain public improvements, authorizing a pledge of and lien on certain service payments to secure such bonds, authorizing the execution and delivery of a bond purchase agreement, if any, or other agreements or related documents to secure such bonds, authorizing the execution and delivery of the transaction documents, authorizing and approving related matters, and declaring an emergency. This is our big one, and I am not going to go through and talk about it because I think just had decided we're going to let Eric give a little refresher primer on it. And this is the second reading of said ordinance.
Yes, if it's okay, if it pleases the group, let's I'd be pleased to do that after legislation's read during old business. Anyone object to that? Holding it off till then?
I have no objection.
Okay, then I'll keep on rolling. We have ordinance 08-2022, an ordinance updating the wage and salary ranges for the number of employees and positions for the Village of Minerva Park. Hey, this one is well highlighted. Maintenance worker, looks like we're going from $13 to $16 an hour. That looks like part-time seasonal, 3 of them I'm seeing added on there, excuse me. Looks like up to 4 seasonal office staff at $11 to $13 an hour. Lifeguards look like we're paying anywhere from 10 to 12 for 0 to 1 years of experience, 12 to 14 for 2, 14 to 16 for 4 or more. And those seem to be the big changes. Okay, so this is like a new one for me.
Yes.
And this is a first reading. So this is basically summer seasonal help. Madam Mayor, you want to comment on it at all?
Yeah, these all did increase. Just so you know, the maintenance worker, the seasonal 3 was always the amount. We have not changed the amount because it's not highlighted, but it was 12 to 15 is what I'm pretty positive. We did go 13 to 16. As you guys are fully aware, it's very difficult to get seasonal workers at this point in time. I do believe that I have secured 2, one of which will start the first week of May, the other one the second week of May, and they do fall in that range. The second part to this is it was requested from our pool manager to see if we could do anything for the lifeguards. Last year we had lifeguards falling out of the woodwork, and this year we are in fact having an issue. being able to get lifeguards. So we are trying to retain some of the ones we had last year. But again, in order to do that, we did have to do something, but we also felt like rewarding some of the returning lifeguards that have been back a couple times. So as you can see, that's why we did a breakdown of some of the newer lifeguards versus some of the ones that have been there for a few years. So, and we also did the same thing with office staff. We have not increased pay as of today for office staff, but we did just want to have a range in case we needed that, because again, it was on such a lower end. We changed it from 10 to 12 to 11 to 13. So again, we're not breaking any sound barriers here with these ranges. We're just trying to be a little, give myself a little bit more of a cushion to be able to play around with wages down there.
The only thing else I will point out to this is as it is typed right now, it is looking as though a waiving of the third reading and a passage at our next meeting is being, I don't know, requested or.
So at this, yes, because the pool is going to be open, we actually wanted to get this done, and there very well may even be emergency legislation added to this. Again, the reason for that is most of the lifeguards do in fact start in about 2 weeks. They are the ones that go down there and help clean out the pool. They are the ones that do all of that. If you don't want to do it as an emergency, obviously we could just pay them the original salary and then we could up it after this one passes. Obviously, it would make things a little easier and more appetizing if we get it done sooner rather than later. But I'm going to leave that up to you guys, whether or not you guys do determine to do that. But again, lifeguards do in fact start more mid-May versus and the day the pool opens. They will be down there painting. They will be down there doing lots of different things to get the pool ready to go.
Awesome. Anyone with any questions or concerns on that? Okay, resolution 2022-12, a resolution affirming the appointment of Matthew Clark as a full-time police officer for the Village of Minerva Park. This is just a second reading of that. No, this is a first reading of that. I apologize. No?
No, second.
This is second, but it's listed as April 28th as the second reading on the actual legislation. So
because we changed the date of this meeting. So I will make sure that we get that for second reading.
Yep, just, okay, so second reading there. And lastly, resolution 2022-13, a resolution affirming the appointment of Tammy Phillips as a full-time police lieutenant for the Village of Minerva Park, Ohio. So this is also a second reading, but also has the same typo.
Yes. Okay. And I wanted to see if you guys can amend the agenda because as you guys may or may not have noticed, you did get sent a piece of legislation for a supplemental appropriation that we would really like to get read tonight. That supplemental appropriation is that $3,000 for the pool, for the merchandise, for the cookout, for the, what was the other thing? Merchandise, concessions. So it is the $3,000. So we would like to have that read because at that point we will not need to do it as an emergency if we do get the first reading in tonight.
Okay.
In May.
That would be a move to amend, wouldn't it?
Yes, I believe that's accurate. And then we would just get it added to the agenda for.
I move to amend the agenda to include Ordinance 09-2022 in the legislative reading section of the agenda.
Second.
David McNamara seconds. Any discussion? Brian's not here, so I'll call the voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, having amended the agenda, we now have an additional legislative item, Ordinance 09-2022 for a first reading, an ordinance to make supplemental appropriations for the current expenses of the Village of Minerva Park for the year 2022. This is a $3,000 appropriation for the pool. I know, Mayor, you kind of went over a little bit there, but would you like to give some more details on that since this is our first reading?
Absolutely. This was requested from council that we increase some of the appropriations for the pool. It is the request that we sell some merchandise. We purchase some merchandise and sell merchandise, as well as add a concession option. So we could potentially increase our revenue down there, as well as the potential of having a cookout on the first Saturday of the pool being open, or Sunday. Can't remember now. Sunday.
Yes.
So it would be to purchase the hot dogs and hamburgers and buns, and we would then turn around and sell those items. For the record, I've been trying to get a hold of Franklin County Public Health all day today. This is not abnormal. I did this the last time. It took a little while to actually get a hold of them to verify. Depending on our size of the area that we will be selling in, we may not have to have a license to sell concessions. However, we may need a license to sell concessions. So I'm still trying to verify whether or not we do. And we will get that handled if we do. And then same thing with the tax and all of that. We have the finance department working on getting all of that set up so we don't have any issues or problems come June 23rd when we have to file taxes for the tax there. And we also need to verify whether or not we need a license and or permit for the Sunday event. So whether or not, again, we don't want to we want to make sure that we cover our bases. So as soon as I talk to Franklin County Health, as soon as I get a hold of somebody there, and I will get all that information, find out what we need to do sooner rather than later.
Half joking, but is there a way to throw a liquor license in there too?
There is. It's more complex. We can discuss that.
If you're doing all that work, I mean, if it's only half the work to add a liquor license in there as opposed to starting from scratch. I'm just throwing it out there.
And I shouldn't probably say this on a public record because, it always gets thrown back in my face anytime I do. But just so you know, that cute little shed has like a little sliding door. I'm just saying.
I mean,
I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
Listen, someone has a door. Why can't we be as cool?
I know.
We can discuss how to make that happen. There are ways to do it.
Planning session. Seriously, I think this would be worthwhile to pursue.
Well, yeah, I will say, because I've done the Family Fun Fest a lot. We have never gotten a permit to sell food and have always sold food. I don't know if that was an oversight by someone and we should have gotten in trouble for it or not. I know, of course, we did always get a license to sell alcohol. And as long as we're considered a nonprofit, now I don't know because we're a government agency. And if we make any profit, are we going to keep that money? Are we then going to?
It's going to go back into the pool.
But if it goes back into the thing, I don't understand any of that. I don't know how us being a government's going to change it.
We'll have some options for you.
It's a surplus.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Eric does have ideas when it does come to this because we've actually talked about it before. I would assume, Eric, this has to do with the CIC, and I don't want to go any further in that.
That's one example of how it can be set up, and other municipalities have done this. And I've experienced working in other places that have done things similar with their liquor licenses, and there's all kinds of tools in the toolbox now. The state has given municipalities to do interesting things. So let's have some future meeting where we can, maybe a work session, and we can devote 30 minutes to kind of go over things, so council can consider those options.
Okay.
All right. In that case, with that amended legislative item, we are now again to the end of legislation.
Okay, let's go. New business. If I'm skipping things, tell me, because I lost it again.
Mine's like all wonky too.
It says old business first.
Okay, old business. There we go.
I have one brief old business.
Go ahead.
I was a bad brother and forgot the day of my sister's wedding is the 29th of May. So when I was reviewing my calendar, I don't think she'd be too happy if I was at the opening cookout. So I wanted to get that out there as soon as I found out. So
we're good. We'll be okay.
We will try to soldier on without you. It'll be hard.
I don't know how I feel about your priorities.
I completely forgot. I was like, yeah, that date sounds good. And then I'm like, wait a minute. When I'm looking at my
wedding?
Yes, I'm a member of the wedding party. I completely forgot the date.
We're going to send her a note and let her know that what you signed up for.
Ooh.
You're going to get in trouble.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. That was old business. Does anybody have new business?
No. Do you want me to jump in on the old business or new business?
Oh yeah, we're in old business.
Old business. This takes precedent over everything else.
Yes, it does.
Very good. So per council's earlier discussion, happy to give a quick and brief summary of events to kind of clear things up for some of the residents who may be listening at this point live or in the future. The council at this stage is considering an ordinance to agree to issue a bond in the amount of $8 million. In summary, that bond is not anything to be considered new taxes. The tax increment finance district, the TIF district, was set up some years ago by a previous council, already approved, already legal, and already generating revenue. The bond simply allows the village to take advantage of the money over the remainder of the term, roughly 25 years, the majority of the money, I should say, and allow it to put it into play. So we are able to take $8 million, and we're obligated to pay MI roughly $2.5 million, final amount to be determined, but that leaves the village roughly $5.5 million to then utilize for various capital improvement projects. Now, those projects have to be directly or indirectly supportive of the TIF district being the new subdivision. Our attorneys are reviewing our proposed list of items, which include the new building, include complete rework and re-engineering of our lakes, which would include dredging, and it would include some smaller items such as the council passed a recent ordinance for the amphitheater, so a small amount of funding will go to that, and which is partially reimbursed by the state. There is a need for a new maintenance building. Obviously, if we build our building, we're going to tear down our little bitty maintenance shed, but the village has grown to an extent to where the village maintenance department also needs a professional and secure place to store tools and equipment. And so that will be determined, but there's money needed for that. And finally, whatever remainder may be left, it can be dedicated towards connectors, pathways, and any other items related to that connect the village as a whole, which would also support the current TIF district. That would include our long desired item to connect some of our outlying areas like Jordan Road to the primary pathway system that was set up during the creation of the MI subdivision. So, which kind of brings everybody together. That's it in a nutshell. I know there's been some discussion where some folks, in institutional financing is a very different animal than budgeting for your household or even your company. And things are taken on a much greater time scale. And so we assess things a little differently when we do bonds and so forth. And there's some confusion, I think, concerning the levy, the property tax levy that's going to be there. That's an operational budget renewal. TIF money can't be used for things other than capital improvements that benefit the TIF district, not for general operations of the village. The bond also doesn't in any way, shape, or form touch our general operating fund. This is completely supported and pledged by the already existing revenue stream by the TIF. That's put into place. You can't really give it back. It's generating. We got to pay MI. And so it's a unique opportunity and commonly used across Ohio as allowed by the state legislators to go ahead and, put TIFs into place, make use of those funds for that limited amount of time. 25, 30 years may seem like a long time, but it's again, for an institution that technically lives as long as the United States and the state does, it's a small drop in the bucket. So we have a unique opportunity to take advantage of those funds to use for the purposes of bettering the village. And everyone knows we've got quite a number of projects that we need to do. And many of these projects have been planned for some time. The building is reaching a 6-year point of plan, and all kinds of different commissions, different councils, and it's gone through a multiple year process to get to this point. So we're pleased to be getting to finally get something professional, a proper facility for the police department and for the council and the public at large. And so we're looking forward to that. And obviously we need to do something with the lake so that over the course of time, we don't constantly have to, it doesn't turn into a bog. And, people I'm sure value their lakes from Minerva Park. They're a major piece of it. But there's a lot of money that needs to be spent to get them engineered to a point to where we don't have to maintenance it every, so it doesn't fill up with silt and crap every, 10 years or so. And it's been speeding up since the last time that they did that, thanks to a lot of factors, water flows, things of this nature, you know, into the lake. So a lot of projects, a lot of things to do. This is an advantage to take, you know, this is an opportunity to take advantage of an excellent funding opportunity. We secured, so the public knows, we secured the interest rate at 3.77%, which you can't get interest rates below 4. I would be surprised if you can get it below 5 now for a lot of, you know, any business loan or any type of financing for your home. So that was a successful move by our finance advisors and bond counsel to get that done. So we were pleased with that. Unless anyone has anything else they would like me to kind of opine on, I'm happy to do that, but that's kind of the summary.
Yeah,
So,
I have a couple things to add. So first of all, I actually had to Google what TIF stands for. So I'm just going to read it out loud just because I'm sure I'm not the only one. TIF stands for tax increment financing, a public financing method that is used as a subsidy for redevelopment infrastructure or other community improvement projects in many countries, including the United States. So this is pretty typical. Just wanted to throw that out there because, you know, when I first got in there, I was like, TIF, I don't even know what that stands for. So just starting from the beginning. Okay. The other thing that I want to add is the Fed announced, I think today, that they're still raising interest rates as we go along. That was another announcement by the Fed. So I think a 3.77 is really advantageous at this point. We're not going to get any better. I know there were some concerns about that 45-day period. Inflation is 8%. So when we do that math, you know, 3.77 sounds great because we're basically losing money if you do the math. If inflation is 8% and we're getting a better rate. And then I guess that's all I got. Just wanted to clarify those things really fast.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification, because not everybody is a professional at this. I mean, we're all, you know, part-time from different walks of life. And I know that I had quite the learning curve as well. So that's just so appreciated that.
Yeah, TIF 101.
Bring that up. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess is there anything else that anybody else wants to add in regards to that?
I have a question. So let's talk about the lake project, right? Mm-hmm. Because we talked about removing the silt and everything. How long do we think that what we're going to do is going to last? You know, and then what's the ongoing maintenance after that?
So one of the professional groups that came in to assess it, and to be frank, after the funding is passed, we have to get it engineered. Our engineer has our engineering firm has a lake specialist group. So this is their area of expertise, and they have been chomping at the bit and have presented to previous councils that they would like to go ahead and get started on a project. I apologize for the phone in the background. I can't reach it from here. What happens essentially when one of the options is that lake obviously needs to be cleared out so it's a supportive ecosystem. People don't like the idea of it being just a foot deep, right? So people want it to support fish. It has to meet certain criteria, 6 to 8 feet to support a certain ecosystem. So that's some basics. We would have designed what are called forebays, which are at the front of the, that would be the western side of the South Lake and the northern side of the North Lake. Those forebays catch all the crap, and the silt that comes in there. Those can be cleaned out and maintenance, over shorter spans of time for a lot cheaper than what dredging the entire lake costs, because it's essentially a control point, as it was explained. And so that's one consideration for how. I'm sure there are other options, but since we haven't had it properly, we've been bringing in experts for free and to kind of just talk about this or that. And it really needs to be properly planned and engineered. The options need to be given to council. Council needs to say, I like option B, and then it gets fully engineered, bid, and everyone goes to town on the work. So it'll take, I would say, once the funds here are approved, planning can get started in May, but it's going to be a multi-month process with the engineering firm and probably construction to start in 2023.
All right, thank you.
I have a question. I had to write it down because I almost forgot it. Eric, can you address the reason that we're in this lake mess? Is it because that, from my understanding, it was because that we didn't have enough money previously to maintain it appropriately and we kind of neglected it? Is that true, or can you just address that?
I can't speak to what happened prior to my time, here, which was 16. What I can say is that, they did have it dredged, but the village in the past, and it's a matter of funding. right? Again, these opportunities come with funding. The village tried to do things as best as they could given limited funds, right? So I know, and I want to say it was some time ago, 10 to 20 year period ago, where it was dredged. But again, dredging is a temporary item, as you know, just with our climate change and the rates of 100-year rains and everything that's coming in from the Columbus side brings more and more velocity of garbage and silt and everything into our lakes. So that process has sped up considerably, over the course of time to filling up the lake as a whole, and that's the problem. So it's not been engineered or controlled properly. Otherwise, you'll just be having to dredge it every several years, at some point 7 years to 10-year timeframes, and that's expensive. And of course, with inflation, $500,000 to $750,000 every time the village has to jump at that, and that's not money well spent, in my opinion, as your planner. I think there's a better way if you spend some money with, thanks to the opportunity of the TIF funding. I think you can put the majority of that cash to use, re-engineering the lakes, and then it's just an operation cost that you have to budget and plan for properly to do it every so often in your forebays, and you really won't have to worry about dredging the whole lake again. That's the idea. That's the expensive part. So I think that's very valuable.
I completely agree.
So the idea of these forebays is, the problem is you get fast moving water and it carries a lot of sediment, and then it's already into the lake before it slows down. So you want to put something before it hits the main lake, deep enough, wide enough, what have you, enough to hold a fair amount of water for it. That's going to slow the flow down. So it's going to come in there and it's going to hit there and slow, drop its sediment there, and then the water going into the lake has already dropped all of its sediment. And then you just have a little area that every 5 years or so you get a maintenance plan. You have to go like, oh, well, just in the middle of August when it's real dry, we go in and pull out 3 or 4 dump truck loads of stuff and clean out the drain trap, basically is how all that works. And I'm not an engineer who actually is skilled on this, so I don't know if that's how it works or not, but that's how I understand it to work.
So
that was the impression I got from previous talk.
Yeah, and I think, David, you may or may not have been there. I wish I could tell you exactly the date, how far back to go, but there was a guy that came in from Ohio State, thanks to Joe Curl, that gave us a lot of really good information, and that's where I actually learned what a forebay was. And I do believe that there is some video of that. Maybe I'll see if I can look for it. But ultimately, like Eric said, it's going to be getting it engineered, addressing the shorelines and addressing all of the issues, not just dredging. I think the concern is if we just go in and dredge it, you're going to be dredging it again. And to my knowledge, the North Lake has not been dredged. If you actually go and look at the North Lake, there are sections of the North Lake that are no longer a lake. The Sut is actually above the main water line now. We actually went and weed eated that 2 years ago for them. So if it tells you how much needs dredged out of there. So this has just been an ongoing conversation. It's not to blame anybody, in my opinion, for what happened in the past. This is where we are now. This is, there's been talk of doing this particular project, and I don't want to I don't want to go backwards because this is about what I'm about to do. These are projects that we planned on getting done. So while I understand a price tag looks extremely expensive, when you add all of these projects up together, these are not new projects. These are all projects that have been talked about for years and years and years. I think for some people looking at this number going, oh my gosh, it's $8 million. Right. But if we do the lakes, if we do the building, if we do, as of right now, we are lucky that we have a garage that used to house an EMS, because we have 2 lawnmowers. If people don't remember, we just took over hundreds of acres. Is hundreds of acres ridiculous? Is that not
that's
true?
a little large.
Okay, that's a little large.
Okay, I exaggerated
on that. A lot of acres. We did get a lot of acres.
We took over a lot of acreage that we are now mowing, and we now actually have 2 lawnmowers that we can't even house accurately. We actually had one of our lawnmowers stored at an offsite facility because we don't have appropriate places to put lawnmowers and things like that. So even if we weren't doing this new building, we need a maintenance shed. And I call it a shed, but we need a garage. She has nowhere to work. I don't need to go into all, you guys are all fully aware of this, but I think it's important for people to realize none of these topics, none of these things are new. It's just that we might actually be able to get them done because we're going to have the funds in a very short amount of time to start moving forward, getting these things done instead of talking about it.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately what we've done for years.
I just want to establish, I guess with my questions, I just want to establish the fact that if we don't do this now, it will cost the village more money. Or if we don't do it right, it will cost the village more money. And if we have the opportunity to do it right and probably at the most inexpensive way possible in this moment of time, that we should go ahead and do it. So I just want all the constituents and all the villagers to really understand that thought process. And that's where I'm coming from with all of this, that, hey, like, it's just going to, if we put a patch on a problem, it's just going to cost more money in the long run. And with inflation and with the amount of like the labor costs and like all of the loan costs that we're going to incur, is just going to get worse.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. That we can do it now, or we can do it never, or we can do it later, and it'll cost us even more. We have a fantastic opportunity for us.
As I understand, that TIF money is not going to increase with inflation, right? It's just going to be a set amount every year, correct?
That is correct. The only thing that increases is there's a small increase, it's an increment system. So what happens is, obviously, if people's houses go up, which they've gone up fairly significantly, so we'll see some benefit to that, we see a percentage increase, but it's not enough to keep up with all of the other inflationary costs and with the cost to put the money together. And I think what people, perhaps the best way to put this is, it's the opportunity to take all of that money now. Yes, you've got to pay an interest rate, but it's the opportunity to take it all now. If you wait, the money is worth a lot less 20 years down the road by the time you accumulate it, which makes very little sense when everything else has gone up so significantly. So, it's also, people see 8 million, it's really 5.5 or right around there after we pay MI, and there still may be a small reduction to that amount that's being worked through with our new finance director and MI. So
emphasize that if we pay it off now, it'll be cheaper for us, right?
Correct. So it's what we call the value of money, the net present value of money. That's always, there's a discount. They have to be paid over the next 6 years or whatever the number is they get all that money first. We don't see a dime of the TIF money. We're required by our agreement to pay them first. So, but there's also a value to them taking it a smaller amount to get it all today. I'd rather have my money today than wait 5 years for all of it. So there would be, some agreement between them and us that they would take a little bit less than the full amount owed. We don't know what that number is yet. So maybe we save $100,000 or so on that, because it's not like it's over 30 years. It's only over a few years time to the future, but it's still worth a certain amount of discount. And that's still more money that we get in our pocket right now. $100,000 helps put up the amphitheater, it goes towards a maintenance building. That makes sense, right? That's more value for the village to get, right? And again, just want to emphasize, no taxes go up for anybody. It's based on already existing system. We've already passed the TIF. There's no going back on that. So nobody's losing the opportunity to speak to whether or not a TIF gets approved. Already been approved. The money is taken. The money gets utilized for the benefit of the village. And again, you're replacing a building that is incredibly old and obsolete at this point with a building that the village will utilize for a good 100 years, right? I mean, this current building is 60 plus years old, and it was built by volunteers. We're going to get a professional structure, modernized, that can be updated over the course of the next 100 plus years for the village before they have to worry about it again. So it's a solid investment for the future of the village.
Great. And the last thing I think we should emphasize, again, even though we went over it in the finance meeting, is that we have a separate operational budget, and this won't, we're not using all of this money towards this one project. We have other operational funds for streets, sewers, et cetera, for other things that can possibly go wrong, that we have a separate budget for that.
Correct. This is bonus money. And it's, again, the opportunity, the way it's been set up to get some of these projects done that the village very much has talked about getting done over the past, since I've been here. So again, 6-7 plus years for all of these things.
I think the biggest concern that I had brought up, again, now mind you, before all this, I did not understand this. I'm just going to be flat out honest, but they are worried, again, like what, Anastasia just said, people are worried that, yeah, we may do this, but are we biting off so much that they'll have to pass a levy, say something big happens down the road? Can we look at them and say, don't worry, we got you. We can handle something if something breaks or this and that. And we're not, does that make sense?
It does.
But we can't use that money towards operating costs.
So this, I get that. This wouldn't raise our taxes. But if we're digging so far in with $8 million and something breaks that is a multi-million-dollar project, do we have the money for that, or would that have to go to a levy?
You have the ability to,
because we did this.
Sure. You have, if that was to happen, so let's pretend the TIF didn't exist, okay? Because that money, as Jason spoke to, can't be used for these kind of operational or emergency projects, right? There, those things, those sewer districts, those items for your water, those are separate capital projects that are for the village from an operational standpoint that needs to support. Those come out of the general fund, all right? So the TIF doesn't exist regardless for those items, okay? And so you can pretend, realistically, that there's no TIF. So what would happen if we had a major sewer line problem? We'd probably rely on some of our neighbors like Columbus to assist us. We'd probably have to work out some unique financing. If, let's just say, magically you had miles and miles of pipe that just suddenly magically corroded. Not likely to happen, by the way. But let's just say all of a sudden magically, poof, they were gone one day. They could, you know, on a massive scale. Unlikely, but who knows? There could be a new zombie bug that got into the water system and ate all the pipes. I don't know, right? So something kooky. But if that was if that extreme example was to come to pass, we would rely obviously on a number of different tools that we could get through the state, through our neighbors, the feds even, to help, you know, it's an emergency, folks. And so it's a completely unique and unusual situation that you cannot plan for. Even Columbus can't plan for things like that on a large scale that suddenly take a $20 million bite out of their budget. They can absorb it a little better, right? But they're on a much bigger scale than us, but it's the same problem. And look at Flint, Michigan's a good example, by the way, of a massive emergency that happened because of lead and because they screwed up their water system. And that's still not fixed today. And everybody's trying to dive in on that one too. So that's an example of a major issue that, you know, everybody has to fix in their case.
And I guess
I was going to say, I think another way to look at this is if we did not have the TIF and we decided we needed a new building, that could potentially be coming out of our operating fund. And now those expenses are not coming out of our operating fund. So we have a little more flexibility to handle emergencies should they come up.
Correct.
That's a great point.
Yes, awesome.
You're also,
I guess, just the last point, Nikki, to that, because I've heard that question before, mostly from one person who by now should know the answer, but keeps asking it. You know, well, if we do this and that TIF money is tied up in all these projects, when something bad happens, we won't have it to use it. And the thing to remind people is you don't have to use it anyway, because even if we don't do anything, we just sit there and go, okay, we're going to collect that TIF for the next 25 years. Not a penny of it can be spent on the Jordan Road sewers. You know, not a penny of it can be spent on there, you know,
community improvement projects that benefit the TIF
I mean, so like,
but going to benefit Jason,
you know, and I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say having a good community building benefits the new people as much as the traditional neighborhoods. I don't think saying the lakes being, you know, useful and people being able to fish in them and them not slowly turning into a swamp is useful for everyone. But, you know, a lot of the stuff people, well, what about this happened, the money won't be there. The money's not there now for that because it's illegal to use that for it. And just remind them of that. Like, you know, this doesn't change anything.
Correct.
Yes, if something terrible happens, we're going to be in bad shape because that's why we call it terrible.
Yeah, but we would be regardless.
Like the TIF wouldn't even be able to finance that to begin with. Like, it's not enough money to finance a big emergency. So, like, what's the point? You know what I mean? Like, 20 years down the line, $500,000 isn't going to fix a major catastrophic, like, sewer situation, even if we were able to apply it to that, or a road situation. Like, you're just out that money with inflation. It's like, okay, cool.
Yeah. The best way to keep yourself from having major emergencies, again, is to do what you're doing and plan and spend your operational dollars on keeping things up to snuff, such as your roadways, such as your pipes. Everything you're doing now keeps things from deteriorating to the event where it costs tens of millions of dollars to replace everything. You're not going to let your roads crumble away. You're going to slowly fix them section by section, mile by mile, right? That's what any professional municipality is going to do. And therefore, you're going to prevent a major catastrophe. So
prevention is better than cure. So I'd rather we do the diet and exercise of Minerva Park than the metoprolols of Minerva Park.
So So I have a couple more questions.
Sure.
Can we, I'm gonna ask them both and then we can discuss them. Can we talk about the new shed, kind of what the thought is on size, location, things like that? And then the second one, hold on, I know you want to answer. The amphitheater, when we get that money back, that reimbursement back, where does that money go? Does it go back to this TIF fund?
That's an excellent question on that, because I think that's more of a technical one, and I'll have to ask both Jeff and I'll have to ask Emmett, our bond counsel, that question, because it's a very good one, right? So we're dedicating TIF money to the amphitheater. We're going to get reimbursed by the state. Is it clean at that point and goes to the general fund, or do we put it back in the TIF fund? I think if it goes in the TIF fund, we obviously spend it on pathways or something then, right? One of the miscellaneous things. So I think, but that's a good technical question. I always like those. We'll see what we can get you an answer on that. Okay. To the shed has to be planned out, and it will be done as part of the process. Once, there's no point in doing it until we get obviously a building bid on and the contract approved by council. At that point, and we, for our purposes of knowing what we're getting into, we've met with a couple of prefab building system guys who, that's the most efficient way to put something up for a maintenance building. So it's prefab, meets code. It would be anticipated probably you would see something around 6,000 square feet, right? That would be reasonable. You could put a 14-foot door on that, another, maybe a 10-foot door. These are roll-ups. Have a small office in there for the maintenance staff. That way there's work areas, there's a couple bays so that you can put vehicles in there. You have to plan for the fact that you may one day, sooner than you think, have to have your own snowplow to take care of plowing. So we have to plan. This is the opportunity to plan for having a building that you can house something like that if that day comes to pass. So all these things are got to be considered. But
so yes. I know we've already kind of talked about that snowplow, but just for public record, right? Tell us why we might need to have a snowplow.
Well, I think that, the township comes out and plows we're part of Blendon Township now, right? And so the township is responsible for plowing the roads due to our agreement with them. They do take some property tax revenue. The township, however, may one day they have kind of already started that discussion where they would like us to absorb the boundaries of the township so that they're no longer responsible. Now that is a much bigger discussion, and I have a meeting set up with the administrator. He's already talked to the mayor and I kind of want to talk to him, give a few more details, and have something to present back to you, because it's a big decision both ways, right? I in my career, I don't often run into townships that want you to fully absorb and annex them. So it's a different situation. I'll be honest. It's usually the opposite of that. And I don't fully understand all the reasons. Second, you may or you may not want to do that, right? There are pros and cons to taking that on, and there are certain benefits, to having the township there. Now, some townships provide more service than others. Some provide the fire department. We Plain Local or Liberty provide fire departments to their, respective municipalities, that are within their boundaries. We don't have that. We'd have to have we'd have to have an analysis with everybody as to whether or not we think that's a good idea. But again, having your plow definitely has pros. You have control of it. You have control of when it happens. You're not necessarily lower on the totem pole when you get plowed, right? I mean, so there's pros and there's cons. Con being the expense, but we'll have to see how that will go. So we'll get that in the full discussion.
All right, I'm gonna, just because I'm going down my list of what we talked about. So let's talk about the connectors, right? I think recently some of us council people kind of talked about what the original plan was to connect Jordan Road, but again, kind of for the record, let's kind of talk about what that connector looks like potentially.
So we've talked about that to some degree at planning and zoning in conceptual form about how that would be done. We took advantage of the situation where the one house was sold over there on the court. Yep. And the trick is we control all of the ground that goes up the North Lake pretty much. We have a couple other homeowners to talk to, but we did obtain easement directly off the court that goes back into the yard and is wide enough to eventually put a path down. So we did do that. As you know, you have to take advantage sometimes of your opportunities, just like this TIF money. So small things, lead to less hassle down the road. So we've got easement in place. So we would assume the easiest course of action is to get a pathway that goes back there, eventually interconnects at the North Lake. There's, you can engineer some shoreline to then, have a path. You would have to cross the lake at some point. That would have to be, could be done in a couple different ways. I would envision, much like you see in the Metro Park, some type of, boardwalk. And again, we've talked about ways that we can get reimbursed for that too, because that lends itself back to the historical part of Minerva Park that we're awarded money for our amphitheater, and that would interconnect into the pathway eventually on Minerva Lake Road, where we've got stuff, right across the street on the south side that then leads into the new subdivision and goes to the municipal building. So that's essentially one way to do it. That's the conceptual discussion at this point in time. And then, the pathways and connectors are kind of last on, I wouldn't say they're last on the priority list, but they're last on the list because it's a flexible number, right? We truthfully, we have to plan out a couple of projects that are a higher priority, the building being one, the lakes being the other. We have an idea of what those cost. We suspect, given the current environment, things just are getting more expensive, as we previously discussed. So there may be a few $100,000 more that we have to throw at those projects that are lessened for the pathways, but the pathways are flexible in the sense that we also have partners out there in Morpsey, City of Columbus, there is money out there, state money as well, to help us complete certain connections. And so I see that more as once that process gets started, we will plan that out and, in the next, I would say 23, 24 timeframe, begin to make progress in that area, especially if we get past the building of the lake.
Does it go into the discussion of the lake dredging at all? Is there a connection there? Is there any part of it that will overlap? Because as you're dredging,
I would say, especially if we're considering crossing our North Lake, that piece will have to be done. That's why I suspect we can plan that out the rest of 22 and 23. That construction can, take place, and we can be done with the lakes by the end of 23. Right now, the pathways, you can get started on certain points of that pathway. Crossing the lake will probably have to be, you have to do it after, those 4 bays are engineered and we know where everything's going to be. Right. So it would be silly to do it otherwise, but yeah.
Okay. And then do you want to address that? That I know Brian Wolf was talking about just making a road connector, but that just seems like an exorbitant cost, because we would have to buy lots and plow down houses.
Financing. So an actual road. It's just sometimes when we talk about ideas, that's something, that's something to maybe be considered. I've looked at it. There's not really a good, my review of that situation, it was tough enough to get an 8-foot wide pathway that we can put in a 25-foot easement. We got a 25-foot wide easement to be able to plan out our pathway there. And we've still got some work to do. Roadway takes a little bit more time and effort. And, and I leave that up to, our future discussions, obviously much like the connector that was done to MI to, the other side, that's been very useful, I think, for the residents. I think there was concern at first, but I think once people realized you didn't have to jump out into Cleveland's shenanigan, that worked out nicely for everybody over there. And so again, that benefited the village, but that was a fairly easy connector. So Jordan will be challenging in this environment, and we'd have to pay for any property we took as part of a roadway project. It would be expensive.
Yeah, I just want to go on the record saying, I pretty much pulled everybody that, I talk a lot, everybody knows this, the stop and chat, as we call it on Jordan. And there does not seem to be a lot of consensus saying that that's something that this side of this community would want. So it would be more beneficial to our children and safer, I think, in a lot of ways, if we just did a pathway closer to Park Lane.
That's more doable within the short term. That's for sure.
Okay. That's all I got.
Jason?
I think I'm good.
All right.
Anybody?
Do we have any other like FAQs we want to address real quick about anything?
I don't know if we're in old business or new business, so let's open it up to old business and new business because I really don't know where we are.
Okay, somewhere in there.
Somewhere.
All business.
Current business.
Current business.
Hold on. Let me see. I'm looking up my email. Hold on real quick. I can't even find it. What the heck?
Hopefully the server's not down again.
No, it's just I can't even find it in the jumble of emails is what. Because it's like whenever you respond to something, it's just really hard for me to.
I will say Barb has posted the yeah. And then Jason, I will get with you later, maybe Monday or Tuesday. You and I can kind of sit down and go through the red versus green or blue and green and this and that. And because she did respond back to me, we can do 150. I don't know. I'm talking in circles. You and I can sit down and go through the final details.
Yep. And I like that. I think we've had a little discussion about changing it to Minerva Park Proud, which I think is probably better. And it's the same concept, right? So if we need to post that logo, I can get that over to everyone so we can get that posted.
Yeah, shoot it over tomorrow and we can get it added.
Yeah.
Because even if we don't use it for this one, you know, it would satisfy if we just kind of get these logo, you know, if there's no, just for the review, unless people are, even the Pride one, I hate to say it, it's, maybe it's something we use later on down the road, but at least if we have the public review, you know, again, I don't know exactly where we go with it. I know that there's a couple people that don't like it as well as the other one, but I still don't know that doesn't mean we couldn't use it for something else later on down the road. So after we do the public review, we can kind of discuss where we go from there on the 2 or 3 different options that we have. And then you and I can also discuss if we're going to order anything else, you know, just between that. So you and I will sit down like Monday, Tuesday, and just go over all the final details. Finance will probably be there like Monday or Tuesday afternoon. So maybe we can go over some of the final details with like the sales tax. And I don't want to keep everybody on council for all of that because I don't, that sounds boring.
Yeah, we're good.
Well, so, and I will just real quick point out that I love that comment we got from the guy saying like, we're doing a Pride event and we don't want this overlapping. That when I came up with this legislation, however long ago before, like 2 years ago now, I think, this was the exact kind of thing that I was looking for, and not for like, oh, we need approval, is okay, we're gonna do this thing. Do any residents have any like, I hate to use the word legitimate, but like legitimate, like, could you please not do it because of this, that we could just say, oh, okay, yeah, we can talk about it. And now if we all were like, no, we want Minerva Park Pride, then once again, it says review, not approval by the community. Yeah. And so, you know, just little like, oh, that's going to step on our toes here. Can you do something different?
Right. I think it's a good point and well taken. And yeah, I think changing it to Proud instead of Pride. I mean, the concept is, hey, let's be proud of our community, right? We live here. Let's show off that we like where we live. And so, yeah.
Should we just do Minerva Park like Bexley or whatever? I looked it up, like Columbus or whatever. It just says whatever the city you are, where you live. I mean, I don't want to, my thing is, I'm the one who was like, oh, Minerva Park Pride sounds great. But now like thinking about it, like you don't want to like detract from other movements and like ride other people's coattails, I guess. That's what I'm like concerned about. So is even Proud a little too close? You think maybe we should just do Minerva Park? I'm just throwing out.
I would say no. I mean, you know, Minerva Park Proud. I mean, if nothing else, it latches on to some of the, you know, it does sound a little bit like Las Vegas Strong or Boston Strong or this or that. Right. And, you know, we haven't had, thankfully, a mass shooting here. But I think, you know, I think you can nitpick it to death and find a reason to get rid of everything.
Yeah.
I personally, Minerva Park Proud sounds good. Gets the idea across quick and easy.
Right.
Okay.
I think the residents of this village are pretty
Yeah.
proudful of it.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about the shelter? I know that was a lot of emails back and forth today. So
I can give the quick background of it. So planning and zoning had taken that up. I'm going to say over a year ago, but I would actually like to say it was probably closer to 2 years ago. I mean, it's been talked about for an extremely long amount of time. Let me rephrase that: green space. Then we finally got to what we actually wanted to do with the green space. Eric, if I say anything that's not accurate or you want to chime in, just let me know, because you've been a part of every single one of those meetings as well. We have done field trips. We have done all different types of things in all of the green space areas is what planning and zoning did. We went from down.
When you say you guys, who is we guys? Can you clarify
so planning
that?
and zoning is the commission, you know. So the mayor is on the commission. The
Correct.
liaison for many years, the last several years, was Tony Benedetti, was the last councilman, and Brian Wolf is the current liaison from council. And there's 3 at-large members who vote. And then there's additionally, we have up to 3 non-voting advisory members who also sit on the commission now. So
and all of these are residents?
Yes, they are.
And can you tell me how many live close or from, I would say, Lakewood over Maplewood over to Lakewood? How many live in that vicinity? I know Brian does.
Brian's right there, obviously, currently.
Right there in front, yeah.
Yeah. And then we have another gentleman who lives over on Howler, who's on the commission currently. You know, and I'd have to go back and look at some of the names. I don't know the overlap of the detail.
How close they live.
About that. But these folks, you know, have spent a lot of time and effort, you know, in green space planning, and the former councils directed them to do so. Our current chair is Brady Oxender, and specifically council was asked to P&Z, what they didn't want to have happen, I can tell you, is that they asked what the priorities council would give them so they could send up to council. And they didn't want to waste time on anything that was going to get ixnayed or be problematic, right? So the shelter was not one of those things. So they spent, you know, a significant amount of time going to different locations, planning it out, making a recommendation to council, which has been sent up to council. Council has been supportive and gone along with that to date. So that's where we're at. And so there are a couple different, and Brian being the liaison should probably speak to this as well. You know, and I would say this is probably, since we've got a work session in a couple of weeks and we got another meeting next week, we probably got time to talk about it. Now, obviously, you know, we've been doing this for a while now, and it's important, I think, to know that we're getting into the spring and summer season, and we need to probably act on it now too, to at least get something scheduled. You know, but there were multiple locations. It's not just one shelter. There's multiple locations for several shelters that can be done over the next couple of years. So, and that's where we're at.
So
the initial plan, so I'll go a little. So the initial plan was basically someplace to have little Billy's birthday party, is how I described it. I don't know how many times, and maybe I called her Susie and maybe I called it Billy. I'm not really sure. But it is a complete structure that is going to have approximately 6 picnic tables under it. It is not going to have a bathroom. It is not going to have any of those facilities at this point in time. It was requested from council, and I don't want to throw Mark under the bus, but I believe Mark was one of the ones that did not want any sort of issues for like maintenance. And am I correct? You can shake your head. Yes. So this is physically a structure with a roof. It is to provide shelter for, again, over by the kids park area. So where families can have, again, just like a little birthday party or something like that, to being able to play with their kids. This property, and Eric, this is where I might need you to touch in a little bit as well. This property was basically given to us from MI. These were to assist with us being able to do these types of things, expanding the playground. I don't want to say with a shelter, that wasn't exactly what was in mind, but this property was part of the deal when they did it.
Correct. And
so when you're speaking of shelter, I just want to I'm sorry, Eric, I didn't mean to interrupt you by any means. When you're saying a shelter and being over by the park, okay, so maybe I'm confused. I thought it was going to be by the basketball court. It's going to be
it was specifically designed to not. It was specifically designed to not be by the court. So that was one of the many long discussions that went through the commission before it came up the chain.
What area in the park were you guys thinking?
So I'll be happy to walk you out there. You and I can do a little field trip.
I would love that. I'll pack a lunch.
Yes.
It's behind the playground. So there is the tree line right there. There is a house, and then there's it's the open field right there.
Across from the basketball court.
So yes, it is across the Ultra Vista connector.
Right.
If you say shelter house, think of, you know, if you've been to any of the Columbus Metro parks, you know, you got your open air, you got no walls, you got a roof, you got a concrete slab, you got picnic tables.
Yeah.
And you go in there and you have your party.
Yeah. So what? Well, I think there's going to be, I think there can be a grill over there is what we discussed.
Yeah,
so
you can put some of those little, like we have next to the community building now, the little boom, drop it in the ground, bring your charcoal, grill stuff up if you want.
There's still some discussion about how to manage that, you know, but that's part of the fun of growing as a village and providing services. You know, it's one of those things to where a lot of the discussion was, we did not want to, obviously, at the time, especially during COVID, where we had the nicest basketball court in, you know, a multi-mile radius, we attracted a lot of attention. And so that puts a basketball court front and center. And so, of course, there are concerns about safety. And so one of them was, it actually makes sense to put it on the other side so you can actually have people there, but not in direct contact or conflict with anything that goes on in the court, because you don't know who comes on any given day. There are plenty of our own resident kids that come, and there's different age groups. There's families that take part in it. But it's best, but the activities, regardless, you know, assuming all good activities even, are generally in conflict with a birthday party, for example. There's a whole different group that are there, even when we don't have any problematic situations going on, right? It's two different groups with two different goals. And so putting it near the playground where people could have we could even put in, there's a sidewalk there. So we'd have a little bit of a connector between the sidewalk and the facility there. But you know, it was intended for families to use, and having families on site with cell phones and things like that also, you know, help to keep any shenanigans down on the other side. The facility also gives us the opportunity to put up cameras, you know, we have a structure, electric, things of that nature. And so that's also part of the plan. So we would essentially enhance security of the area. By
Did you say electric?
Oh yeah, we'll have
like an electric fence?
No.
All right, Eric. I was just wondering how far you were going with it. I was just seeing. I'm just trying to see where we're at, buddy.
Electric goes to the shelter. The shelter gives us the ability to hook up to it. We can. You want to have safety lights. You want to have lighting.
Correct.
People bring things to plug in, right? I mean, correct. Whether it's just their phone or whether they want to bring something, right?
Radio.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, my bad.
Yeah, no worries. So that gives us the ability to electrify it and to therefore put up cameras, enhance the security of the surrounding zone. And that's a good thing.
Yeah. I agree.
So ultimately, this still is going to come back to council. The whole point of getting it out to bid and this being one of the projects is, and again, I know people have questions and I know emails sometimes come across as not as they should. Asking the questions there's nothing wrong with that, because there are going to be questions. And I'm going to tell you this, even though, you know, we're all smiling and saying, oh, this sounds like a great idea. At the end of the day, there's still going to be people that don't want it there. There's going to be people that don't want it at the pool. There's going to be people that don't want this. Yeah. I understand that. And I completely get that. Yeah. I also understand that safety is a concern. We had an issue 2 years ago. I will say that Chief has already been in discussion we've had this discussion already for this year. We don't know what this year is going to be like at the basketball court. We hope it's like it was last year. And like Eric said, we were one of the only basketball courts. We were brand new. We actually had 2 brand new hoops. And if you asked anybody, we have the nicest court in the area. I know we've had a couple really nice days and we have yet to see any sort of problems or concerns. And if I had wood, I would knock on it because I'm one of those people. So at this point in time, we are extremely hopeful that this year continues to be like it was last year. You're not going to stop speeders whether we have this structure or a basketball court or this, we are going to have to continue to pound down on the speeders. We have at Minerva Lake Road and all of that. I know that is a concern with the basketball court. I just don't like to use, there's speeders because of the basketball court. It's everything. We're still having that issue on every single road. At the end of the day, these things are all going to be brought to council. The whole point of the conversation was, this is not going to have, I think some people see structure and they see all of this stuff. This has been talked about for well over a year. correct me if I'm wrong on that point, Eric, but I guarantee you it's been well over a year, if not two. We have had a lot of discussion when it comes to safety factors and not having restrooms and not just having, there may be one back wall. And again, that's going to be due to being able to put electric and stuff like that. But if anything, there is going to be one wall, not four. It's going to be posts. So go ahead.
So out of all those steps, what steps have we taken to speak with the residents that have absolute, warranted, and very serious concerns? Because I can tell you right now, I know of 10 to 15 people that would love a chance to speak their concerns.
So just if I may, forgive me, this is one of those things where this has been going on for 2 years. People have been well aware. We put it in a newsletter, and the opportunity.
I don't care that you put it in a newsletter. When did you sit down with them and give them the listen to their concerns?
Here's what I'm going to say as your staff. And this is something, if you want to go door to door and talk to people, that is council's prerogative. You are the elected official, and that is your thing to do, right? We have done everything and more than in the public eye, right? And there have been any number of residents involved. And trust me, the basketball court was a long discussion as well.
So tell me those steps were, aside from when you went on your field trips, you told me that Brian lives there, but you don't know how many other people live close. Because again, it's easy to throw sticks into a lake that you don't drown in, or your children aren't ran over because they're not over here to play. So let me just state that. What are the times that we have set aside to say, if you have concerns, let's talk about those. We care about your safety.
Okay. I'm not going to get too in depth. This needs to go to a safety committee meeting because I have a lot that I'm going to start with this. There are going to be people that don't want certain things in their backyard. I am one of those. I have had my own fair share of issues, and there is not one person that understands the not in my backyard. Okay. I have a drug rehab facility that never used to be there. So I am fully aware.
Was it there when you moved in?
No.
It was a nursing home with elderly people. No.
And you had no say-so. Residents have a say-so now. They have a say-so as to what's going on in their house.
Okay, but we didn't have a say-so. I'm just saying.
Not necessarily a say-so, but okay.
Yeah, we definitely did not have a say-so.
Well, Eric, it's funny. You always have a way around of no one having a say-so, as then everybody claims everybody's got a say-so.
I think we should open this to a safety committee.
I totally agree. So, I mean, I think at the end of the day, you can open however many things up to residents. Every resident will have, they will have opportunities. This is going to go to a council vote. When the contract comes in, if we put it out to bid, it's going to come to a vote. And as far as that goes, they'll have the opportunity to come in, and there's going to be 6 council people. And at the end of the day, if we don't have a structure, this is not something I'm going to live and die by. My job is to bring things when it's come from planning and zoning or this and that. My job is to bring it to you guys. I'm not going to use this. I don't have little kids that I'm going to be there for little Billy's birthday party. But here's what I will say. There have been people that do want something like that. So where we are a community, we have roughly 2,000 residents. I understand that if there's something going in by the pool, those people are going to be concerned. If it's over by you, they're going to be concerned. If it's my backyard, I'm going to be concerned because, like you have expressed, it is a concern. My car was broken in 4 times in January of last year. 4.
Your car getting broken into and change being stolen is a little different than a kid being shot by a stray bullet.
It can happen. I mean, we're talking about a drug rehab facility. It could happen.
I just want to point out
we're in the wrong conversation on that.
I think help needs to weigh in.
It's very concerning that we jump to extreme examples that haven't happened, right?
Correct. So
how many gun calls have been made since 2020?
I think Chief Delp needs to be involved.
That's a very
correct.
If
That's
we
why
post
safety
2020, let's look at how serious these calls were. No one can make that educated decision until we see.
So if I understand,
this
I just want to understand, Councilwoman, I want to understand your argument. Are you concerned the shelter is going to get someone shot?
No, I'm worried that it's completely unsafe and bring a plethora of problems that could eventually be something like that.
These were, of course, the same arguments that people made against the basketball hoop. And in fact, they made some rather bad arguments at the Planning and Zoning Commission. And although we had some issues, we have since rectified those issues because you don't know until you try things. And if we lived in a state of fear about everything that could or would happen, nobody would venture outside. Why do we bother building pathways? Why do we even bother building a subdivision, right? So
but in all respect, sir, it's not your children down at the park.
I have
in
children.
All respect.
I have children who are in situations.
They don't play in that park.
They can be shot just like anyone, but it's an extreme
They don't
example.
play in that park where we have seen full grown evidence of those things. You go back and look at the calls.
Okay.
Hold on.
I'm going to stop. We're going to stop this right now because again, this is not the type of meeting this needs to be in.
Happens.
Okay, this is not the meeting that this needs to happen in. I will
thought
say
we were going to talk about it tonight, so I came prepared. That's all.
Nikki, hold on a sec. I think the last safety committee meeting, I kind of brought that up in my concerns about that. And what Chief Delp said was that he really feels, I might be wrong, but what I got from that meeting was that he felt that some sort of camera or video presence would really enhance the safety of that area. And if, you know, if we can do that and the means to that is building a shelter that also benefits the community, but also enhances safety, I think we need to address that in a safety committee before we jump to a lot of conclusions. And I mean, I have kids, I get it. Like, you know, sometimes like I don't feel completely safe going to the playground at all times. Like during the day, like it's not a big deal, but there are times where I was like, I'm going to be a little bit unsure of it. But again, I think we should address it with safety and talk about like, what does Chief think? Do you think like, because cameras do a lot and that way we can enhance that safety if it's connected to the police department. Like, I think that's a big
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just want to correct. No one's going under assumptions. We are going over the actual police calls and the events that I have seen a plethora of my neighbors have to call. They've been the ones calling, you know, the multiple guns. That's what I'm saying. These aren't assumptions. These are things that have happened on our street. So this is a big concern.
Theoretically, what if it's a camera with a shelter attached to it?
Let's schedule
it's both, right?
So I guess here's what I'm going to say. None of this changes the fact that we still have a basketball court. This is actually bringing more safety and security to this. At the end of the day, it does belong in safety. I think our police chief has done an amazing job of, you know, adding in the flock cameras. I know some people still had an issue even with that, but when we get a report of a red car, they are able to do that kind of stuff. There are things that our chief has done. I know for a fact in 2020, we had an issue. I will not disagree with that, but we also can't live in the past. I feel like our police chief has taken this, he has run with it. And, you know, again, I'm not going to get in this topic right now. I mean, you guys can, but all I'm going to say is it does belong in that. I think our chief has done a phenomenal job in the 2021 reports that has been seen. I'm also going to say, you know what, it's April. We're going to know here in the next month or two how we fare out. I mean, at this point, and not that I want, you know, I believe that with our police presence, we're going to be just like last year. I believe that our basketball court will have people paying attention to it. I can tell you how many times I was down there. So David, if you want to schedule that for that topic, because, you know, I mean, as far as that goes, I'm going to leave it up to you guys, whether or not you want me to go ahead and continue getting that project bid out. I was already planning on it. It was actually getting ready to go out. I know that we have one person that's not in favor, but I don't want to, again, I don't want to stop a project and put it on the back burner when we do have 6 voting members on here. And this is something planning and zoning as well had numerous members. So David,
I think it's something to discuss.
I think you can put it out to bid and we can work on the bid process and the safety concern at the same time.
And again,
you know, need to stop the process.
Right. And if everybody decides they want to try to find a different location, you know, the other locations that we had talked about, and again, this is not the safety part of it, so I feel like we can do this. You know, when you walk around like the path and go through the tunnel and all of that, there's like a wet area down there, and we felt that area was just too wet for it. There was also quite a few more houses that were around there. That was one of the downfalls of that. It's not to say that eventually we wouldn't do a structure over there of some sort, because it would be like a really, it would be gorgeous during the summer if we had something down in there. And, you know, that was one of the discussions that we had. One of the other discussions that we had is over at the pool. Again, once you start getting into the summer months when people are going to use it, there is absolutely nowhere to park to use this structure, where I understand parking can still be a concern over there, but with all of the cars moving in and out of there, you have that same issue. And then how do you actually get into there? And now you start moving lawnmowers and large dump, trucks and this and that in that particular area. So having a structure next to a garage doesn't make a lot of sense either. And those were the 3 locations that we had discussed. So if somebody else has a better idea of where you could put something like that, again, I'm not here to argue with council or fight with council. I'm here because, one of the things that I just remind everybody of is we have a large community. And when we do things, we try to look at everybody in the community. We're not trying to do something negative one particular area or another. We are trying to, there are a lot of people that would like to have a structure that they could use, especially if it's a rainy afternoon when they can't do this. I mean, I can tell you, I did Taylor's graduation party at the community building. I will say I would have done it over there. Hands down, no questions asked, that's where I would have done it. So, this brings a lot of things to people that would be useful. And to think that, and this is my bad apple comment that I was trying to make, because we had 1 or 2 really bad apples that was at the park or at the basketball court, we are concerned about putting a structure in which we're basically denying all of our residents for.
We're not concerned about doing the structure. We just want to keep it safe.
And
that's my concern.
And that's a valid conversation. I mean,
that's where I'm going with this. Yes. And it's not 1 or 2 bad apples. We're talking multiple carloads of bad apples. You got a whole orchard of bad apples in a Chevy Malibu. That's all I'm saying.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, I think it's a wonderful thing for safety.
Wait, when we put it out to bid, can we get a breakdown of how much money is it going to cost to put in electrical as a separate line item, just so we know how much more is a structure going to cost compared to still putting electrical in there for safety purposes to put a camera in there and a light? You know what I mean?
We can get you, that's kind of a secondary thing after the structure goes in, but yes, we had discussed that at length. It was a project. We did a number of projects when I was the planner in Powell, and we used the same information technology group. And so these things are interlinked into the cruisers. It helps expand your police force and their viewable area. And you can set up any plethora of cameras that can be set for motion and infrared and all kinds of neat things, especially after dark, to help the officers, expand their view of what's going on in the village. So
because that was a problem once.
Yeah, there's all kinds of nifty things we can do.
Right. So I just want to know separately, like, how much more money is it going to cost to put a shelter in compared to just actually, putting electrical in that area? Because from the last safety meeting that I attended, I believe, this was a long time ago, but what I got from that too, my takeaway was Chief did recommend some sort of video presence there, but it was cost prohibitive at the time.
I wasn't on that meeting. I can tell you that the electric's already there, right? It's already, we just have to have a meter. AP will install a meter for us. The electric's there. There's a cost to it. I don't see, just to give you an example, amphitheater wiring, due to the distance from the road and where we'd have to pull some stuff to, because it costs around $26,000 to get things up down there. I would guesstimate, based on that quote, that electric at the shelter is much simpler. We're probably looking somewhere between 10 and 15. I don't see it exceeding 15. I would be very surprised, but I can be surprised.
With these prices, who knows? There's like monopoly.
Yeah, but there's different things. I mean, there's a lot involved with bringing it into that gully down there and to wire up. We have a shelter within a few feet of the public utility easements, where we can drop stuff. It's in a modern subdivision, so it's not going to be the same cost. It's going to be cheaper than what it costs for the amphitheater. So I'm fairly confident in thinking it's between 10 and 15, but we'll try to shore that up. See when I can get a contractor out there.
Yeah, just give me like a separate line item. I'm just always curious, like how much is it really?
We will have to bid that as a separate, because we're ready with the shelter. The shelter has already been prepped. And so that would be a separate bid item, and actually it's a special project. We would get a quote for the cameras from our vendor.
I just want to know how much
we would have to approve the shelter before approving the safety stuff that we would go around. Correct.
You would, but the shelter's got to go in first. So we can time everything, but some things are ready to go to get the public bid now. And given the environment, we want to put it out to get that information while we work through some other parts of the project.
Yeah. I was just wondering, so when you're going to put it out to bid, it's not going to be like a, hey, it's okay, we're going to put a shelter in just like a contractor and we're going to wire it. And the wiring part is this much money and
no. These are prefab type structures. So like Morton Building System, things like that. We pick basically a basic design. You know, they give us a proposal. We've already gotten pre-proposals from them. That's how we know what it costs. We have to publicly, you know, put it out there so multiple contractors have a chance to bid on it. We can also, you know, I don't think Morton was they weren't on the state contract list, were they, Mayor? I can't recall. So we unless that's the case, that's the only exemption. We simply put it out there, and if people, you know, bid on it, they do. We know Morton will, so we're, you know, they're already familiar with us. A couple others might, and you know, we'll see what they cost at the end of the day. We have those plans, what the shelter will look like that you can send us? Yeah, we have something.
Can you send it to council just so we can see it?
Oh yeah.
Or what planning and zoning is recommending?
Yep.
And speaking of things, circling back to speaking of things, that list that you emailed us with the breakdown, back to the other parts, sorry. The breakdown of the $8 million, like I do want to, once it comes back from legal, can we publish that?
We as Jesse said in the last meeting, it will be a publishable legal document, will not be attorney-client. We'll put it on the website once we have that
What's
memo.
The timeline on that?
I talked to Emmett today, and so I'm hopeful we have it by early next week. They have to go through their tax guys. There's an analysis they have to do in that preparation.
I think that's not enough time, to be honest. Does it have to be
time.
Official? It's 3 days.
It is what it is. So,
well, what I'm proposing is, can we put out hey, this is an unofficial thing, but this is kind of what we're looking at?
I guess.
Because I want something. Something's better.
Let the mayor tell me if that's, you know, she's got the information. She can make the call to put it on the website at that point. It's not my call.
This is one thing you guys are all going to learn about me. No, we're going to let Jesse make that call because I don't like making those specific calls. If Jesse says it's fine, then we will. But if he says that we have to wait for the official memo because of some certain thing, then we have to wait for the official memo.
Okay, so but I just want at least some justification if we can get it out earlier and say, hey, this is not official.
And I don't disagree. We'll ask Jesse because we can get it published tomorrow.
Yeah.
I have no problem publishing it if it doesn't affect anything for the loan.
Yeah, I agree.
So we'll verify with him
tomorrow. Can I bring up one more thing? And it may not be for this, it may be for a committee meeting, but the dog in the golf cart.
Let me answer this. Here's all I'm going to say on this. There has been police involvement.
Okay.
The Humane Society has been contacted on numerous events, and it is being everybody is fully aware of it, and the chief has made a couple emails back and forth with people, actually with one person. We have only actually had one real complaint for this. And other than that, I will let him address it I don't want to step on his toes. I don't want to, they have been called, and I'll let Nikki talk here in a second, but they have been called, and they are all aware of it.
Okay. I just happened to see a little bit of Facebook chatter today.
I'll let Nikki.
Yes. And when the first person posted that, you guys know, you know me, I'm like, oh, I'm getting to the bottom of this. You know what I mean? Of course I did. So I went to the police station the next day. I asked, and they said, you know, Nikki, the dog is not being drugged. It is not at low speeds. The dog is happy. Now, mind you, this is an elderly man. This is how he is exercising his dog. So how do I say this on public record? This guy did show up at a rally and looked like the person, he showed his character at that rally. Let's just say that, correct? However, he can be, I'm just going to say it. He can be a douche and still be able, I mean it, I'm going to say it. I can't think of a better word. Me and Anoop saw it personally. He was not going fast. I mean, because that's why I kept asking people, please send in video. Because if there's times where he's being drugged, Humane Society needs that. And the police sees it. The police said that they were going slow. The one time we have personally seen it, we are going slow. He was going slow. He is going no faster than Happy the dog. And I don't know if any of you guys know Happy the dog. It's a senior dog that Keith, one of our residents, Keith Finn, he actually rides on the bicycle. It is no faster than that. So if there is times where that dog's being drugged, we need to get videos of that. But from my personal, what I've seen, that dog is not stressed out. It's not. And I'm all one for being very adamant on animal stuff, guys. I'm just,
yeah, I personally haven't witnessed it, so I've just
probably should have used a different word, but you know.
When you see things on the internet about, oh my goodness, this poor dog, my first thing is, I bet that's not actually true.
Correct.
I bet just like there are people who, as Nikki said, there are people who ride their bikes. Guys got the nice recumbent bikes, got the dog running alongside it.
That's
he
Happy.
Can't run with the dog, and the dog wants to run. And if the dog's like, hey, I'm going to run, and you're going to drive your little golf cart at 5 or 7 miles an hour, I can run that fast for an hour next to you and be super happy. And then people see it and say, oh, that's just terrible. Well, maybe, or maybe the dog really likes it.
Okay, I'm glad you answered that then. And I didn't want to step on any toes when it comes to that, because I mean, ultimately at the end of the day, yes, our lieutenant has been in contact with him. Our chief has been in contact with him. We have personally seen the dog out there. I know that people are saying that he's running the dog for an hour straight. I'm not sure if they're stopping to take drinks. Because I don't know that somebody's literally following him for an hour. So it is very difficult to make an assumption and to think that our police department can just go over there and do certain things just because, you know, it appears a certain way is not possible. And I know that's not what people want to hear. I do believe somebody said that there was a traffic violation or something, but again, they have to see that. And our police department is not following him around for an hour at a time. And he is an elderly man. He is getting the dog exercise. I think some people would rather see the dog get exercise than not. I can tell you my dog could run for an hour like that and drag me the entire way. So my dog would love every second of it, but I don't have a golf cart. So guess what? She gets to walk. So I know that people are not happy about it. I know it's a touchy topic. I am not going to use the word that you used, but I know that there's some people that are not
Please
fans.
don't.
No, but I know that there's people that are not fans of him. And, you know, so the little things turn into big things. And if the dog was being tortured, I can promise you, I know Leah's on here, but Leah will be across the street in about 2 seconds. So she loves talking to our animals and plays with her. Exactly. So we personally have not seen it. It is across the street from us. So obviously we're seeing him when he leaves and when he comes back. And when the dog comes back, the dog seems happy and all of the above. So, and yes, our chief, you know, it was one of the days as soon as he got back when they went over there. So it wasn't like right when he first left. So all I can tell you is, like, you know, if there is a situation that he's dragging the dog or anything like that, then obviously this is a different topic. But at this point in time, I know people aren't happy, but that's the answer.
Okay.
Always a good time to point out that posting something to a Facebook page is not the same as reporting it. It is not an official government site. You can post something to a Facebook page or go in your backyard and scream real loud at your flowers. You will get the same response from the government because that is the same level of communication you are doing.
Yeah, I think what I was more concerned about was people saying that they were trying to get a hold of the non-emergency line and just couldn't get through, and just feeling like they've, when I hear reached out to the village and not get a response, that always kind of throws a red flag up, right? Because I can tell you, our police chief responds way faster even than I do. And most people will tell you that I respond pretty fast. Yeah.
I obviously refrain from Facebook for obvious reasons, because the first time you respond, everybody expects a response. Yes, I will tell you, finally today, I did read a response from a couple days ago. I don't just comment on food trucks. There are times in which I will go on there and I will comment on fun little things. But yes, I'm not going to respond to certain things because there are things that are public record. There are things that are not public record. And I think for the most part, most residents would prefer I keep my mouth shut on things like that when it comes to liability for the village. So, you know, again, I'm not a Facebook troll. I'm not going to sit on there all day. I do have some things to do, but I do respond to email. Chief responds to email. As far as reaching out to the police department, I will tell you, some people do still call the 614-882-5743 and leave voicemails. That's their way of getting hold of the police department. It still does happen. The phone number is, and if anybody's watching this, it's the 614, except now I can't think of what it is. Is it 525-3333? I think so. That is the sheriff's office. They will dispatch an officer. I will make one promise. It is not difficult to use. I have used it numerous times, and I will tell you, when I want to dispatch an officer, that's exactly how I do it. I do not call the officers on their cell phones because I don't have all the officers' cell phones by any stretch of any imagination. So I know people call me and they want me to call them on their cell phones, but it doesn't work that way. I call the 525-3333. Nikki was just at the office the other day, and that's how we dispatched Chief to come back to the community building. That is the process. There is nothing wrong with that process to my knowledge. Unfortunately, I saw that post as well. It does concern me, but even more so, it's surprising that somebody's not reaching out to Chief or myself, which our emails are published everywhere. So if somebody is, again, watching this and they are having an issue reaching the police department, we need to know that. Not via Facebook.
No, I think it's good that you say that, right? Because if people are saying they're reaching out to you and you're saying, hey, I haven't gotten anything on it, you know, community.
Well, I mean, a perfect example is the dog. I mean, the dog, I can tell you, I personally have seen 5 or 6 posts, and I will tell you that it is not monitored 7 days a week. Barb might point something out. I may see something come across. I will also promise you, I am not on the Minerva Park open discussion. I think you can pull it up and see if I'm on there, but I know that I was tagged in one because I can still go see it. I usually do it about once a month just to see what people are saying. It is not something I go on daily, weekly, again, maybe once a month. And I just happened to see that one today. So it is important that people can reach out. And again, I don't think it's our responsibility to monitor Facebook. And I know that there was a previous council person that thought it was our job. Right. So our police chief, I don't think anybody wants our police chief monitoring Facebook while he's while he's on duty and all of that. So I beg of people, Facebook is not the appropriate thing. It is not a public record. Right. Please email the chief. He will respond to you, or call the 614-525-3333. Right. They do respond. They will respond.
I will say that one time it's in my phone now, but there was one time when I couldn't find the phone number and the website had a different phone number.
I'll verify that it's all fixed. See, the other issue is sometimes when people call in to pay their court tickets, they can actually call Leah and so they can pay their tickets. There's an 800 number. So I think, again, there is still some miscommunication. And I think that's, once again, one of those communication things as we continue to move forward. We had that meeting earlier. We can continue to pound that in people's heads, making sure it's on the newsletter. We do tend to have that in there as much as possible. Maybe a Facebook post here and there just to remind people. But that is, again, I stress, if somebody really is having a problem, please let us know, because I use it quite often. And I've never had an issue, but I will tell you, the first time I called it, I hung up on it too, because I didn't realize that that's what it was. It is the Franklin County Sheriff.
I think it changed. This website, they changed it. So now it's like the right numbers. I just Googled it, but maybe it's worthwhile to put a button on the top of the homepage to say, like, reach the police, click here, and then the numbers pop up.
So we can work. I mean, we can work on a couple different things to make it easier for people, because I mean, again, you want people to know what that number is right off the top of their head. You don't, if I know we had talked about getting newer magnets, because I still have one, I believe, on my, actually, I'm going to go look here in a second, but I do believe I have one on here, because in an emergency, obviously you still call 911, but if it's one of those in between on the border, you don't want to be going to minervapark.org and trying to find the police department phone number.
Mm-hmm. And I encourage everybody, if anybody is watching, to put that number into their cell phones, which I did actually. I usually do that wherever I live. I'm planning on living here for like ever. So that is very much in my phone. And maybe everybody else can do it. I will tell you what that number is. It is 614-525-3333. Mine is labeled as police dispatch. Sometimes that's hard to find. So maybe Minerva Park Police Dispatch or Minerva Park Police would be a better label. But again, it is 614-525-3333.
Yes. Agreed.
You write it down?
I know. Should we go through it? Do you guys want to do roll call and see how everybody wrote it?
Didn't write it down.
I got it. I wrote it down.
I got it.
And maybe that's something that we can make sure that we have a budget for National Night Out, to making sure we have new magnets sitting on the table that people can take with them. I mean, there's some fun little things that we can do to help them out as well to get the message across. So I know it's an ongoing issue, and we have new residents that move in every single day, and you can't expect them to know it right off the rip. So
yeah, or maybe even like, you know how you can pin that like information on the top of a Facebook page, not that Facebook, or like just pin it to the top of our website,
or even
or just tell your neighbors. If you have new neighbors, just be like, hey, this is like, put this into your phone.
Yeah, it is. It's great information to make sure people have, and you can't say it enough.
Part of the welcome packet.
Okay. I think we have talked about everything 3 times. I think okay, so I know that there's some emails going around for everybody talking about scheduling a safety committee meeting, which I'm totally on board with. We do want to double check with Chief to find out when he is available as well. I know he really tries to be available anytime for us. You know, sometimes I do like to try to do it, which doesn't make him stay late like 5 nights in a row. So if we could do it, typically he does work late on Thursdays because he likes to come to our meetings. So if we could try to maybe schedule the safety meeting on a Thursday, that would be awesome. Maybe like right before the council meeting or something like that. But again, if that time doesn't work, he is usually pretty flexible with us. And then also the safety or the streets meeting, to go ahead and get that scheduled. Honestly, it doesn't matter to me when. You and I can, I'll text you here in a little bit or email you.
What about Mike? Do we need Mike?
Yes. Well, yeah. I mean, I think we'll ask him where we are on a couple of those projects if he's ready to talk about it, and we can do it this week, next week, whichever one, because I know I'm ready.
This week coming up is like the best week for me because I start working next week, so it's going to be busier.
Okay.
This is way easier.
Even if he can give us an overview of where we are on those. So we'll double check with that, or maybe we can even piggyback, you know, on a Wednesday night or Tuesday night, both of those 2 meetings, just so, you know, we're not doing 4 nights in a row next week. Or 3 nights in a row.
But I don't know. I'm around during the day if anybody else is too, if somebody could do that, but maybe not. We'll see. Because I can do it during the day. I don't know about anybody else.
I can always do during the day. And of course, they would, I can always do it during the day if council, but I know some people can't. So I'm open for whenever, wherever. Mike obviously could do during the day. So I'm not sure who else is on there, but maybe we could check with them for that. Mike loves doing during the day. And then we can always make it public. You know, obviously we can post the meeting once it's done and over with.
Yeah.
All right, well, we're just down to scheduling concerns. I think that is things we can handle through email. So I am going to motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have lots of seconds. We can give it to Jason. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. See you next time, everyone.
Bye, guys. Well, I guess we'll see you all next week.
Yep.
Multiple.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Night.